Welcome to episode 2 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. We'll be talking with my friend Ann Radefeld about how students can practice giving speeches with technology, how they can connect to a global society, and participate in some virtual field trips and distance learning experiences. We'll also discuss voice typing in Google Docs, FlipGrid, Google Hangouts, Skype, Screencastify, and other technologies. Also, later in the show, I'll be sharing a contest that you won't want to miss out on. And now, let's get to the show.
Welcome to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast with Jake Miller.
Hey everybody, welcome into episode 2 of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Thank you again for being here. If you have not done so yet, please do subscribe in your podcast platform of choice. You can visit us on eduducttape.com to get some information about where you can subscribe and some links to subscribing and things like that. Before we jump into my chat with Ann, I want to share my thoughts about trying new things in the classroom. I want to provide you with this to frame your thinking as you listen to what Ann shares. We talked in episode 1 about educational duct tape, my metaphor and belief that quality integration of technology is when it is a tool used to address your goals, needs, problems, or standards in your learning environment. Again, just like duct tape is a tool to address and fix problems or needs. With that in mind, I want to discuss why we should use technology for that. One of my favorite bloggers is Matt Miller at ditchthattextbook.com. In one of his posts titled Safe Teaching is Risky Teaching, Matt says, safe teaching won't rock the boat. It's forgotten immediately. Safe teaching is risky teaching. Our safest option is to take risks. In other words, if we don't take risks by trying new and innovative things, the ceiling for our students' learning and growth is capped. While implementing new technologies means a risk that it may not work out, not taking that risk may mean little opportunity for gain. It's like saving money. Keeping your money in a safe means it'll always be there, but it won't increase in value. Investing in stocks, mutual funds, and IRAs means there could be losses, but it also means if you make informed investments, there could be huge gains. And I'm hoping that this podcast will act as a resource to inform those investments that you make in student learning by taking some calculated risks with educational technology. I hope you get the metaphors and everything in there. And I'm hoping that Ann in this episode and the things that I share as well will be some information that inform those risks that you make in the investments in student learning in your classrooms. So let's jump right into my interview with Ann Radefeld.
Today's guest.
All right, so today we're here with one of my friends, Ann Radefeld. Ann is a curriculum facilitator in the North Royalton City School District. She began her teaching career teaching high school French and German. Now, I've known Ann as a friend for 5 or 6 years, and one of the first things that struck me about Ann professionally as an educator are her connections and collaborations between teachers, students, and the outside world, and how passionate she is about making those things happen for the learners in her schools and sharing those with other educators. You can find out more about some of those things that Ann does on Twitter at Ann Radefeld. That's ANNRADEFELD. Welcome in, Ann.
Hi, Jake. Thanks for inviting me in for your first podcast here.
Yeah, episode 2, guest 1. What an honor, right?
Yeah, a real big honor. Thank you.
There's probably like 6 people listening to us right now.
That's okay. Those 6 people, we'll pass it on to 6 more people.
That would be awesome. And that would go right back to that passion of connecting and collaborating teachers and students and the outside world from around the world, huh?
That's right. Absolutely.
Yep. Okay, so first, before we get into the edtech stuff, we're going to get to know Ann a little bit. Now, I don't think I could technically, due to copyright reasons, I don't think I could reference this by its real name. I don't know. It might be owned by like Milton Bradley or one of those game companies. So we're going to play a quick round of which of these things do you consider to be less torturous?
Which of these things do you consider to be less torturous?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds good.
So first up, would you rather have a horse's tail or a unicorn horn?
Gosh, thinking about it, I'd probably rather have a unicorn horn because unicorns are pretty cool and a unique being. And I think that if I had a unicorn horn, I might be able to use it in some creative way, like pushing my way into a room when I couldn't get in, or, like unicorns, you imagine them kind of like a narwhal. So maybe I could break through some ice or, might help me on my commute to work in some way when it's a snowy day.
It is nice. Like, sometimes you have like too many things in your hand, like you got your coffee mug, you got your school bag, you got your phone and stuff like that. Maybe you could hook something onto your horn, right?
I totally, like my school bag with my Chromebook in it. Yeah, I could hook a lot of things on that unicorn horn. Absolutely. I would definitely want a unicorn horn.
See, I was going horse's tail because I was figuring I could just hide that pretty easily. But you're trying to be more purposeful. You're like, I can get a lot out of that unicorn horn.
Absolutely. That's the difference between a man and a woman.
Right. You're being practical, and I'm just trying to cover things up.
You are.
Okay, so let's ease our way into the ed tech. I got another. Which of these things do you consider to be less torturous? Okay, would you? Oh, I almost said it. I almost said the thing I'm not supposed to say there. Would you? Which would be less torturous? Having an embarrassing message pop up on your computer screen during a presentation to the staff, or having an embarrassing message pop up on your computer screen during a presentation to students?
Less torturous is definitely have an embarrassing message pop up on my computer screen during a presentation to the staff.
I agree.
That I can definitely laugh off. Everybody can enjoy that. But those embarrassing messages in front of students, that's something that you never live down.
I agree. I think it actually could be like a rapport building with the staff, right?
I think so. Absolutely.
The students may never take you seriously again after that.
That's correct.
Okay, so let's get into the educational duct tape right now. So first up, I've got a question for you, and we're both going to answer a little. You know the educational duct tape format, but it's a problem or a goal that a teacher may have in the classroom. And then we're going to talk about how ed tech can help us out with that. And then you've got a question for me too, and we're both going to do the same there.
Cool.
Okay, so first up, how can kids practice giving speeches? We know it can be hard for a kid to stand up in front of their class and give a speech without ever practicing. And the practicing, if it's in front of other kids, can be difficult. And the practicing by themselves, it's kind of hard to give themselves feedback and self-assess. So how can we use educational technology to help students practice giving speeches?
Sure. Well, Jake, first of all, you know that I'm not in the classroom. I'm in a role very similar to your role. And, I deal a lot with instructional technology. So I don't exactly have a class of my own. When I did have a class of my own, all of these fabulous technology tools were not available to me. So I practice a lot on my own two children. And I've got two kids. You know this. They are in 5th grade and 3rd grade. And sometimes I need to have them practice giving speeches. My son just had to give a speech that was video recorded, and my 3rd grader, and he does not like to be video recorded. So I went at this in 2 different stages. First, I had him create his speech using voice typing in Google Docs.
Nice.
This allowed him to speak it, first of all, out loud, clearly, and see what he was saying in front of him. Now, as he was speaking it, Google Docs was obviously capturing everything he said. So then he had a script. We went through that script together and we edited it. And I thought that was really helpful because he could see what he was saying and where the edits needed to be. Once he had that speech done, we used Screencastify, which is an extension in Chrome. We used Screencastify to video record him doing his speech in front of himself. Mm-hmm. Now, he wasn't very happy about doing this, but it was beneficial for him because it got him used to being in front of the camera and also seeing his face and his voice on the computer screen for the recording.
Yeah, that's perfect because then he could really self-assess what he was doing and see those ums and uhs, right?
He could see the ums and uhs. So I will tell you one other tactic that I use with my own children. And if they have a speech or something that they need to turn in, maybe it's not exactly a speech, maybe it's some type of video recording project, we will often go in front of the green screen that we have in our basement. And because I'm a nerd mom, I do have that green screen in the basement. And we will use the green screen to do some type of fun video so that they can practice and make it a little bit more fun for themselves.
Oh, so they like put themselves in a different setting in the background or something while they're practicing?
That is exactly what they do.
Are they on like Tatooine right with like the 2 sons in the background talking to Luke maybe?
They are wherever they want to be at that point in time. Sometimes they may be on Tatooine.
Yeah. Now, so I've got to ask with the green screen, do you have is it a green screen you purchased or is it fabric or is it painted wall?
Yeah, I purchased a green screen probably about 6 months ago because my son wanted one. And then we've just found different ways to use it. So it's just in our basement. I bought the structure to sort of let it stand all the time. So it's a standing green screen. And we just use my phone to do the recording, and we use either iMovie or WeVideo to edit.
That's so fun that your kids are doing that.
Yeah.
So one thing, I've done the Screencastify thing with students before and had teachers use that with students before. I love you including the voice typing idea there. I think scripting, people think you don't want your speech to be scripted, but I think it's important to lay out what you're going to say and then don't read it verbatim, but see what you're actually going to say. So do you like the idea of having them read it verbatim, or do you like the idea of them seeing the words, kind of remembering, and then going a little bit more off the cuff once they've kind of planned it out in their head?
I'll tell you, it all depends on the age and the comfort level of the child. So when my son recently did this project, he memorized his speech verbatim because he was more comfortable in doing that. And as he recorded, he was able to kind of liven up his voice and make him sound a little bit more like himself, that it wasn't really memorized.
Yeah. So third grade, you said?
Third grade.
Yeah. I think that's definitely appropriate. It's something you kind of scaffold in and phase in, right? Where it can be totally scripted when they're young. I actually listened to a podcast about speaking to work on myself as a speaker. And they talk about actually scripting your speech before you give it. Even though you don't want to read from note cards or something when you're up on the stage, you want to kind of plan out in your head what you're actually going to say. So I think that's a powerful thing you do there with the voice typing.
Thanks.
Okay, so my answer, I like those. I would certainly use those. Another tool I really am interested in for this is FlipGrid. So obviously we know FlipGrid does pretty similar to what Screencastify does, where it captures the student through the webcam. It doesn't do the screen version, it just does the webcam. So the kids could respond in FlipGrid with their speech as a practice version of it. And I think there's two different ways we could use that. One is if they were quote unquote, turning it into the teacher, for the teacher to screen their speech before the students, before they did it in front of the class, and not let, the FlipGrid be public. So just the teacher is seeing it. Okay. And then the teacher can give feedback too before the student goes up in front of the room. And then the other would be for each student, and I've never tried this before, but this is something I'm interested in, for each student to have their own grid that they use kind of throughout the school year with the teacher. And so maybe they're practicing a speech on there, maybe it's their response to something, maybe it's just communicating back and forth between the teacher. Because on FlipGrid, before you submit it, you could look at your own video and they could say, wow, I could have been better there. They self-assess. And then the teacher can also see it and give them some feedback.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea, Jake. And what I like about that idea as well, what you didn't mention, is that you could share that grid with somebody and make it collaborative.
Oh, yeah.
So somebody can do some type of, recording back. You could incorporate peer editing. You could incorporate peer assessment into that. I love that idea.
Totally. And you could share with mom and dad, right?
You could share with mom and dad. And furthermore, if the student has their own grid, you could watch the progression of how you improve throughout the school year. Almost as like a portfolio.
Yeah, that would be really awesome. Well, and actually, on the note of a portfolio, videos in FlipGrid all have their own like individual codes. So you actually could pick and choose which ones you want to like highlight and put those, like, so let's say your portfolio is on a Google site, you could put those videos onto the Google site. I think you can embed them. I've never tried to embed one on a site.
I think you can embed them.
Yeah, I think you can.
I'm pretty sure they give you an embed code.
But even if you can't, worst case scenario, you can link it in there. And then on that portfolio, the kid can actually model their growth.
Yeah, that's great.
That's the way I really like to see portfolios used, because oftentimes they end up being a showcase of the student's most exemplary work. And I feel like that's hiding a little bit of the learning process and growth process. I think it's best to show the growth happening, not just the success at the end, but show where we started from and actually see that kid exhibiting a growth mindset over the course of their portfolio.
I agree with you completely. I mean, if you think about, a child, a kindergartner's writing portfolio that they hand to the parent at parent-teacher conferences, it's showing that progression of writing throughout the year. And, we don't see that generally in that digital portfolio. You're right. It's a highlight of the work that students are proud of.
Yeah.
But I think students should be proud that they've grown.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes I think that comes at a certain age where we start to kind of ignore that, because if I think about, like, my kids are young, like yours, if I think about like their conferences or their student-led conferences, we're looking at say their writing and saying, like, you could see they're using phonetic spelling here, and so that's going to come as time goes, but you could see them being able to develop their ideas, and then as you look at a later piece, you could see, like, oh, there's still phonetic spelling, but now they're using punctuation accurately, and we see that growth. But then as we get up to middle school, which is the level I tend to work with, we end up just showcasing the perfection. Yeah, which is a shame, because we need to model that growth mindset and show kids that we don't expect perfection, we expect growth.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So a lot of good stuff there. We almost don't even need a second question.
I know. I'm gonna tell you, I think you needed an episode on portfolios.
Right. We need a portfolio episode. Yeah. Maybe I should call you back for that one.
Maybe.
All 6 people that are listening right now, send Ann a message. Right. If you're one of the 6 people listening, send Ann a message on Twitter. It's at Ann Radefeld, and tell her you got to come back on the Educational Duct Tape podcast and talk more about portfolios. Nice. Okay, so I think you've got a question to ask yourself now, right?
Yeah, I do. I have a question for you, Jake. And so you mentioned at the beginning that I'm really passionate about collaboration and connecting students and teachers with others who are maybe outside or even inside of their school building. So my question for you is, with our students' futures being part of a global society, how can we initiate collaborations and connections that bring the world to our classroom?
Well, I'm glad that I get to answer this one first, Ann, because I know that your answers are going to totally blow everybody's mind and knock everybody's socks off. So I get to go first before you've told us all your mind-blowing things. But the thing that I want to share here that I've had students use is called Skype A Scientist. Skype A Scientist is totally free. You can find it at skypeascientist.com. It doesn't have to be Skype. It can be Google Hangouts too. And it's a nonprofit that connects classrooms to actual scientists out there in the world, around the world. And what you do is you go to their site and you sign up, and then they have a Google form where you request a scientist to Skype with or Google Hangout with. And you say, it'd be this time of year, this time of day, these days of the week, this age of kids. And this is the kind of scientist we like to talk about. So if you're in the middle of a biology lesson, maybe you say, we want to talk to a biologist and we're hoping to talk about biomes or whatever. We've done it a couple of times, and it has been such a smooth process. The scientists that we've worked with have been amazing. You could tell that they're getting as much out of it as we are, just their opportunity to kind of give back to these students. And so one of the ones we did was with a coding club at our school. And we talked to a gentleman from UCLA, and he was sharing with us about how he uses coding to create virtual human cells. So they're not physical, they're virtual on the computer, and they could kind of test medicines and things like that on these cells to see what's likely to happen. So it's almost like a first step before they actually try these things out in the lab. And then the second one we did was with a robotics club. And we spoke to a gentleman from McGill University in Canada, and he was doing a project where he was reverse engineering the brain. So he was looking at how the brain works so that they can create digital vision systems. So they could take and essentially make a robot that has a lens that could process a picture or an image and figure out what's there using the way our brain does it. So, but it could be anything. If you say we're doing a project about Antarctica, then you could find a scientist maybe that has some kind of expertise in that, or the animals of Antarctica, or climate science, or things like that. Super cool. And in person, the kids actually get to ask them questions and things like that.
Jake, this is fabulous. I am Googling it as you're talking right now. And how did you find this?
I don't know. Probably Twitter. I find everything on Twitter.
Yeah, this is awesome.
So I'm sure it was Twitter. And I should be mentioning the young lady who runs the program. I don't know her name off the top of my head, but she is an absolute rock star and is super helpful in connecting. And she says, if you don't hear back from your scientist within a week, reach out to me and I'll find you somebody else. And they're super helpful, but you don't have to do that because the scientists are so pumped to give back and to work with the students. And it literally is scientists from around the world.
Yeah, I'm looking here. The scientists have a form, it looks like, that they can fill out, and the teachers also have a form. So I am definitely going to be forwarding this website to my teachers tomorrow morning.
Nice. Awesome. And then what you do is you fill it out. Like, so let's say that an 8th grade science teacher wants to do it, like they buy in and they want to do it multiple times. They'll want to fill it out kind of like once for each unit. Mm-hmm. So they might be filling the form out like 5 times, like once for each unit. We're looking for a biologist for this unit, and earth scientist for this unit, and things like that. So you fill it out more than once to participate, to find those links.
This is great. Thanks.
Cool. Okay. Now, blow everybody's socks off. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, Jake, a little bit about me, first of all, and why I'm passionate about this. When I was a child, I lived in England for 5 years, and I moved there when I was 11. I moved back to the United States when I was 16. And I moved there because of my dad's job. So this move and living overseas definitely opened my mind to a whole bunch of other things I would not have necessarily known just living in the United States my whole life. As you said in the beginning, I was a French and German teacher, so that was my background. So I am very connected to what's going on globally in the world, and really my passion is Europe just because I spent so much time there. When I first got into this position that I am in, I talked to my best friend in England. Her name is Claire, and Claire is a kindergarten teacher in England. And I said, Claire, I'm going to be in this new job. Do you want to Skype with another kindergarten teacher? I mean, I've known her since I was 11. So she is, really easygoing and great to work with. And I'm just fortunate that her school is all for this, because this is our 6th year of Skyping once a month between 2 kindergarten classes. At the beginning, we did quite a few collaborative projects. We used EduCreations, and we sent those back and forth. Now we pretty much stick to a kind of a curriculum that we've decided upon at the beginning of the year. We speak probably, I'd say in August. Late August, we speak, and Claire starts school in September. So Claire and the teacher that I work with where I work, we all 3 talk together and come up with a plan. We always start with this is my school video. Each classroom sort of tours their school and gets to know their school, and then creates a video and sends it to the other class. So our first September meeting is always talking about the school and maybe learning a little bit about each other's countries. One of the key things that the kids always notice is that in England, they wear uniforms. And so we talk a lot about the uniforms. Mm-hmm. We talk about their weather, and, they're fascinated that some days we get snow, or some days, it's very hot at the beginning of the year. They start school in September, and it may be hot to them, but hot to them might be like 60 degrees or 70 degrees, which they're also measuring in Celsius. So our kindergartners are learning quite a bit from this. We always do something in October that deals with fall and Halloween. The British students share a song with us that they always learn about their harvest festival that they have in mid-October. And in November, we talk about Thanksgiving, and they talk about Guy Fawkes Day, and about how, I think they have a poem or something that they do for that as well. And then we finish up around the holidays. They do some type of Christmas song, and we usually do a song or poem for them.
Oh, wow. How cool.
And we have something each month. We always read Dr. Seuss books in March. Sometimes if we each have good readers, we'll have a student read a little bit of a Dr. Seuss book on each side, but we will often do some type of tally so we can incorporate the math to see which Dr. Seuss books we're reading and which ones are popular on either side of the ocean.
Oh, interesting.
So that has been phenomenal. And each year we've done this has just gotten better and better because we've tended to connect it more to the curriculum. I have had students come up to me. The first group of students that did this are in 5th grade now, and they still remember. They come up to me and they say, "Are you still Skyping England?" And I think that's incredible because some of these kids will never leave the town that they live in. And to give them this opportunity to hear the accents, to, learn, like to see pictures of different cars and look out the window and see England. I mean, they're seeing it and they may never, ever go there. I feel like I'm really lucky because I got to live there and I've been able to experience life overseas, but not everybody gets to do that.
Oh, how cool. I wasn't surprised at all to hear you say that the kids come back to you and ask about it, because then we sometimes, maybe not often enough, have those experiences with students where they'll come back years later and have a very distinct memory of it because it was so important and so special for them.
That's right.
And how cool that you're giving them that. And so there's 2 things that really stuck out to me as you were talking about that. One was how good of a job you guys are doing at connecting the curriculum to it, right? And the kids probably don't even notice that, right? Like you're talking about maybe you're charting the favorite Dr. Seuss books, or maybe weather is in your standards, and so you're talking about climate, or maybe culture is in one of your standards, and so you're talking about the differences in the culture, and the students are experiencing that, and just something that's really neat and fun to them, but they're actually building their skills, their knowledge in these curriculum things that they need to hit on.
That's absolutely correct. I mean, it's a really great experience. And so this has just kind of been my gateway to getting teachers to collaborate with others throughout the world. I have done programs in Antarctica. We just did one in North Royalton. My colleague, she sort of facilitated it, but somehow, and I don't even remember how I found this woman, but I found a woman that does penguin research in Antarctica during the winter months.
Oh my gosh, I saw the video of the class connected with this woman, and then watching the birds. There was one type, so there were the penguins, and then there was a different type of bird, right?
And I'll tell you that this is the third year that I've tried to do this Antarctica. And the first year, the woman had no availability. The second year, which was last year, we had a snow day when I was supposed to connect with her in Antarctica. And
how ironic, right? For somebody in Antarctica to be like, oh yeah, stay home on a snow day, right? Oh
my goodness. And I was so upset. And she emailed me and she said, oh, I wish I could have Skyped with you today. It was a beautiful day in Antarctica and the penguins were so active. So this year we finally made it work. And I'm just so excited that we were able to give a class that opportunity. And this is actually my second Skype experience in Antarctica. I Skyped with a woman who was doing graduate research in Antarctica probably about 5 years ago. And she was stationed at, I think it's called McMurdo Station in Antarctica. She was doing, I believe, geology, a master's in geology. And she was studying blood falls in Antarctica. And surprisingly, Antarctica has a waterfall and it's called Blood Falls, and it's blood because it looks like a red water flowing over the ice, and it's red because of the amount of iron that is in the water. So we were able to Skype with her about 5 years ago, and ironically, she had a better internet connection than we did.
Yeah.
But we dropped her internet and were able to call her right back. And we could also, she showed us out the window and showed us Antarctica, which was also really cool.
Oh, cool. Now, so a question here. I know a lot of teachers, or I'm conjecturing that a lot of teachers would feel nervous about the internet connection. When you've had that happen during these connections, how are the people on the other end? Are they understanding about it?
Everybody is understanding because you know what? We're all using internet and anybody can drop at any time. Yeah. So it really, you have to let that go and even explain to the students at the beginning, you know what, hey, you know, the connection may be slow. Their speech may break up a little bit because we connect over Wi-Fi onto a laptop at the front of the classroom.
Right.
And I mean, sometimes even on our wired connection, sometimes the internet it's not stable. Wherever you are, whether you're in, you know, a metropolitan city in the United States or whether you're in Antarctica, you know, and sometimes you have multiple people connecting. We did, and actually I have this coming up again tomorrow. I'm so excited about it. We are connecting with the astronauts or explorers, you could call them, at Virgin Galactic. And these are the individuals that are sending normal people to space. So not astronauts, but you buy your ticket to space. So I connected with them, I think the gentleman said we were connected 3 years ago, and we're doing it again tomorrow. So we're connecting science classes, 5th grade science classes with astronauts at Virgin Galactic.
Oh my gosh.
And these guys at Virgin Galactic do such a great job in talking to the kids. So when we did it previously, we connected between 3 different science classrooms, and that was a little chaotic because they also had, I believe, 5 different people on their side connecting. Tomorrow, we will be doing it just in one classroom at 2 different times during the day, and they will also have multiple people connecting throughout the country. But it's really cool to talk to them. I like the space chats, or, you know, like the Skype A Scientist is really cool because I was looking to see if there were any astronauts.
Yeah.
That's something I get asked a lot.
Super cool. So I have like 19 questions for you because that is so fascinating. So first of all, not everybody is lucky enough to have lived in England and have a friend over there. So, but obviously you don't know anybody at Virgin Galactic and you don't know anybody in Antarctica. How did you make all these connections?
I talk to a lot of people and I'm never afraid to ask anybody for help. So that is how I found out about Antarctica, because somebody I know here knew somebody who knew somebody.
Nice.
And if I could give any teacher advice, like, don't be afraid to ask, because all somebody can say is no.
Right.
Now, Virgin Galactic I found through, I think it was through one of the Google Plus communities. So I use a few Google Plus communities. And if you're not familiar with Google Plus, that is Google's sort of social media network. And Google Plus is going away for most clients. However, I have heard that it is going to stay for enterprise, which to me says that education clients will keep Google Plus. So for now, I am continuing to use Google Plus to reach out to other people.
Awesome. Will you send me links to those groups, and we could stick them into the show notes?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That'd be great. Yeah, those are great ways to connect. I think, I'm guessing there are also probably Facebook groups and things like that to do similar things.
Yeah, I haven't gone onto Facebook to find groups, but that's a good idea. I should take a look at Facebook.
Yeah, maybe I'll look for a few and stick them in the show notes if I could find anybody. But I think you're right. There are always people on the other end that are looking to do these things, and all you've got to do is find them and ask them, right? And then there are some people who maybe haven't ever thought of it, and if you ask them, they're like, wow, that would be super cool. I would love to do that.
That's right. And so Skype, you mentioned the Skype A Scientist, Skype for Education. They also have a nice little website that you can go on and you can look for virtual field trips. So through Skype for Education, I was able to find numerous virtual field trips for our students. Last year, I will tell you, I did one that was really great for third grade. Our third graders had just read about Ohio inventors, and they learned about Thomas Edison. And I found a virtual field trip at Thomas Edison's historic monument in Orange, New Jersey. And the gentleman, the park ranger that led us on this virtual field trip was incredible. He had an iPad and he led us around the facility, and we were able to see just really nooks and crannies of where Thomas Edison lived and worked.
Oh my gosh.
He even took us, this was really cool, Jake. He showed us, there was like another group of school children visiting the facility that day. And he said, take a look at this, guys. He said, wave hi to the students that are here. And, all of our third graders are waving hi. And then he said, but I'm going to take you somewhere that they can't go. And he took us into this supply closet that had all of the artifacts that Thomas Edison used to tinker with.
Oh, that they can't have out on display.
They can't have out on display. And those students couldn't even go in that closet because it was literally a closet that he took us into. And he took the iPad and he showed us all of these different things that were there. It was really cool.
Yeah. So the interesting thing is when people talk about virtual field trips, I think people tend to think, oh, this is for going on field trips you can't afford to go on. But there's also field trips that you can't possibly go on that you're kind of taking kids on here, right? So like your kids could have potentially gone to that monument, but they couldn't have gone back into those back rooms and see those things that they were able to see this way.
That's absolutely correct. Yeah.
Your kids obviously can't go to Antarctica.
No.
Right. And they can't go to these spaceships and things.
Yeah, they can't go to the spaceships. Our third graders also read Mr. Popper's Penguins. And so I have a school that really likes to do a penguin field trip. Now, the Antarctica field trip, you can only do at a certain time of year because that's when this woman is in Antarctica. For some reason, they read Mr. Popper's Penguins later in the year. And I have found a couple of good penguin virtual visits. And I look for the free ones. And so there were two I found, and this was all through Skype for Education. So one I found that was a zoo in South Africa, and another I found that was a zoo in Edinburgh, Scotland. And when you're doing something like that, not only are you exposing the kids to a zoo that's in another country, in another continent, but they also get to hear the accent. And, it's really cool to see another place in that way. So those are a few others that I've done. And those I found through Skype for Education.
Oh, super cool.
Yeah. Another place that I go, Jake, and I want to mention this, is a website called CILC. And CILC, I'll send you this link. They, many of the virtual field trips there you have to pay for, but they do have a collection of free ones. Now, I did some virtual field trips through parks in Alaska. National parks in Alaska. And what I started to realize as I was doing these and connecting with more national parks is that national parks will do virtual field trips for free as long as they have the equipment on their side to do that. So now instead of going to any of, like the website CILC or Skype for Education, if I have an idea or I see where I can connect it to the curriculum, for example, like biomes in 7th grade, I might start going to the National Park website, nps.gov, and looking up specific websites for specific parks to fit into the curriculum. And I'll call the parks, but I've connected out to Grand Canyon, parks in Alaska, Denali, Glacier Bay. Where else have I? I've connected to some parks in Florida. I've connected to Maine. So really all throughout the country, Mammoth Cave does a phenomenal distance learning program. The Badlands in South Dakota does another one. So
Wow.
if you can imagine going there, to see something, then that's when you should start to look to see if they have distance learning.
Yeah, then that's actually I'm glad you got to that point there, because that's perfect. That's educational duct tape right there, right? You go, the kids are learning about the Badlands or whatever it might be. How can I make this learning stickier or richer for them? Oh, wait a minute, I could go to the National Park Service and see if we could Skype with somebody there, right?
Yeah, because ideally I'd want to take them there, but I can't.
Right. Right. And so you've got these, I don't want to call them problems, but you've got these goals that you're trying to solve for your kids. Maybe they're learning standards, or maybe they're just needs that the kids have, and you're using this educational technology tool to do that for you. And what I like about it is you and your teachers you work with now kind of have this thing in the back of your head. It's in your toolbox, so to speak, of Skype and Google Hangouts that you can go back and grab whenever you need it. When your kids are on their algebra lesson about slope, then maybe you don't go to it. But when your kids are on their unit in social studies where they're talking about the Civil War, maybe you go like, oh, let's see if we can go to a certain museum or Gettysburg or something like that. So you tap back into that whenever it fits your curriculum.
Absolutely.
Super cool. One of the other things too I liked is in your example with the kindergarten classes, where they're making the video to share with the other kids, is that you're not only just having the live Skype connection, you're having kids create and share things back and forth. So you mentioned using EduCreations, which is an iPad and Android app that you could use on some newer Chromebooks too, where the kids are creating videos and then they're able to show them to an audience across the world from them.
Yeah. And I mean, at the kindergarten level, that they love to do that. And we do digital and non-digital creation. They just sent Christmas ornaments to their friends in England.
How cool.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna give you like a little volley, like a little serve on the volleyball court. I'm gonna give you a set, and you're gonna spike this one because the answer is kind of obvious here already. Do you find that the kids are creating better and more impressive products when they're sending them to these other schools?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. They will,
right.
Because they're sending them to somebody else.
Yeah, it's not just their teacher, it's not just mom, it's not just the kids in the classroom. It's this whole other group of people that they want to look good for, to reflect well for, and that's, I mean, like what a wonderful like digital footprint thing. What a wonderful way to take pride in their learning and in their creations and what they're doing.
That's right.
Oh my gosh, Ann, do you want to come back for like the next 6 episodes and keep talking about?
I'll come back as much as you want, Jake. I'm here for you.
all six people are on Twitter right now at Ann Radefeld, and they're sending you messages. Please come back every episode, and please also now. Here's what I want to see, Ann. I want to see some of these people connect with you. I want somebody to be a teacher in somewhere really cool that wants to connect to your students.
Yeah,
and create a new connection. How cool would that be?
I really want that.
Yeah. So if you're out there and you do a lesson about North Royalton, Ohio, connecting with Ann will totally fit your standards, and you could do that.
Absolutely. We can find other things to fit standards, Jake.
That's the truth. We could just do the good old mystery Skype and things like that, right?
Mystery Skype. We could compare communities. Comparison of communities would be really cool.
Yep. I know there's a lot of standards in the elementary grades about communities and societies and things like that.
Yep.
And the holiday stuff with that class in England, that's super cool to hear about. You named one of their holidays and I was like, what's that?
Yeah.
To you know it, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Oh my gosh. Super cool. Thanks for doing this, Ann.
No problem, Jake.
Okay. So one more time, these people that want to connect with you for these Google Hangouts and stuff like that, where can they reach you?
So the best way to get me is on Twitter at Ann Radefeld, and that's ANN RADEFELD.
I think in your Twitter handle, you need to capitalize the R-A-D, like Ann Radefeld.
Maybe I should.
This was pretty rad, Ann.
Thanks, Jake.
I think I came out of the box pretty strong with guest number 1 here.
Thanks. I hope so. Let's cross our fingers that you've got more than 6 listeners right now.
Right. I hope so. All right. Well, thank you so much for being with us today, Ann.
Okay. Thanks, Jake.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.
Wow, what a fantastic interview with Ann Radefeld. She is such an awesome educator with so many awesome ideas. You can hear her passion when she talks about this stuff. Such an inspiring way to start off the Educational Duct Tape podcast. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you will follow Ann on Twitter and connect with her if you have some ideas for some classroom connections. So thanks again for joining us for episode 2 of the Educational Duct Tape podcast. I do hope to bring this back to you on a weekly basis, and I hope that you have subscribed so that you'll hear each and every one of those episodes. I hope that you'll be back with us next week when we have my friend Sarah Rivera on to talk about teacher feedback and peer feedback and some digital ways to do that. One last note, I am running a little contest for the month of January 2019. I will be sending out 20 of my popular GIF pronunciation stickers shaped as either a gift for those of you who pronounce it correctly or a peanut butter jar for those of you who pronounce it incorrectly. No judgment here, just some playful teasing. Anyhow, for your chance to win one, just share on Twitter or Instagram that you're listening to the podcast and include the hashtag EDU-Duct-Tape. You can include a screenshot of your podcast player or your thoughts on the episode or whatever you'd like, actually. But what's important is that hashtag EDU-DUCT-TAPE. I'll do a search for the hashtag, like your post, and then add you to the contest. So as long as you see that I've liked it, you know that you're entered. You can enter once per episode that comes out in 2019, so subscribe, listen, and share to increase your chances to win. I'll only be searching on Twitter and Instagram, but if you'd like to share on a different platform, like Facebook, feel free to do so, and then email me a screenshot to jakemillertech@gmail.com, and I'll add your name to the contest. You may also need to do that if your profile on whatever platform is set to private, because I won't be able to see what you're sharing regardless of what hashtags you use. And again, thank you so much for joining us. Have a fantastic day, and I'll be back next week.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape podcast. Please consider rating and reviewing the show on your favorite podcast app. #EduDuctTape.